lots of questions coming through as well. I'll hold fire and jump across to Andrew Brooks. Thanks very much for joining us as well, Andrew, and thank you for your support of our event today. Now, we're taking a slightly different perspective with your presentation, and being that it's a community-led or community housing provider-led development model. So it's one that we've actually written about several times on the Urban Developer. So I'm really interested to get your perspective. So Andrew, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Many thanks, Adam. And hopefully you can both hear and see the presentation.
Yes.
So look, conscious of time and acknowledging prior speakers, thank you for those. Those were really interesting. To give you a little bit of background about SGCH, we've been around for 35 years, operating in Sydney and mainly in the Sydney metro area. You can see there some of the stats. Fundamentally, we've grown the portfolio quite significantly over the last few years, and that's through extended government management of their stock, as well as building over 1,000 units under our own steam. And we've really used our balance sheet to raise capital to be able to have a very efficient capital structure to be able to manage that development pipeline. You see there that we are a not-for-profit, but we are for surplus, and I characterise that as social heart and business head. And we are very deliberate about being a sustainable business, because in those almost 7,000 properties, about 12,000 people in Sydney call that home. And it's about 1 in 430 people in New South Wales live in a St George or under a St George roof, managed roof. So it's a big responsibility, and it's important that we have a sustainable business so that we can continue to deliver those support services. Pipeline, as I mentioned, we have actually got a little bit more in the secured sites now, and we'll be making some further announcements later this year to that effect. But it is about making sure we can continue what we started about 5 or 6 years ago, which was delivering on our nation building leveraging target and participation in the Social and Affordable Housing Fund. This is the project that I'm going to talk about today, and it is really a very collaborative partnership, bringing together all 3 tiers of government, both federal, state and the City of Sydney. And also some of the deep partnerships we've been working through over the last few years with designers, planners and financiers, as well as construction delivery partners. So this building completed in early June of this year. It's 162 units. Delighted to say we've got about 150 of those now all fully leased, and that's been quite a challenge given the past 3 or 4 months that we've been through in Sydney. You can see there that some of the stats about the building, the mix is predominantly, well, it is exclusively 1 2 bedrooms with only 4 3 bedrooms and a couple of dual key units. We have a ground floor commercial space fronting Gibbon Street, and we also have an office established for SGCH, which is fully operational, has been since June, and that's where we have about up to 25 staff in normal occupation levels, so that they can deliver services for our Central Sydney portfolio and Redfern Waterloo portfolio, as well as being on site as building managers for this project. We've got a cafe established in the ground floor, which we're looking to lease up as we emerge from the current COVID restrictions. And you'll see some of the private open space that we've allocated for the residents in the building to use. It's quite innovative, as well as a community hub where we can deliver our services of language and education supports. There's a social enterprise we're establishing with the bike hub here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But key stat in the bottom corner there is that we had a commitment to deliver a minimum 25% of the units to be housing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander customers. I'm delighted to say that we're actually over 40% take up with Aboriginal customers, and that reflects the Redfern background as being very, very much associated with the Aboriginal community there. So I talked about the partnership structure, and I think putting some names to the key partners here. We own the site. We bought it off the City of Sydney. It was a former depot site, and Everyone in this forum will know that social and affordable housing is a subsidised form of leasing, and subsidised housing requires a subsidy. So the key subsidy that came into this project was the acquisition of the land at existing use value rather than its potential as a residential site. And that was a great move by the City of Sydney. We've had some similar liaisons with the City of Sydney when we won a tender for a Green Square project. And again, concessional land was the key to being able to access great locations. This project is about 200 metres from Redfern Station, so it really is very well connected. Our design team, consisting of principally DKO Architects, Northrop and Impact Project Management, we've been working with those teams for easily 5 or 6 years, and it really is one of the keys to the success on this project. We also brought in a tier 1 builder because this was our largest project and we wanted certainty of delivery and quality. So in the long-term ownership of assets, it's the durability and the quality that really deliver the upside in the long-term management profile. So designing out key issues about repeat expenditure on carpet and redecoration, external maintenance is absolutely fundamental. And I think Movac have been through that process as well in their build-to-rent program. So how to build in durability. It doesn't come at no cost, it comes at some cost, but look at the long-term cost-benefit analysis, and it's about really controlling that maintenance tail for the 40 or 50 years that we'll be the owner of this asset. So Lend-Lease were brought in pretty early in the process as we were going through the DA to have an early contractor involvement. That was a limited commitment, but it translated through to a fixed price not to exceed D&C contracts, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in. The site we bought from the City of Sydney, we didn't pay for the site until we had an acceptable DA. And the consent authority was the department. We participated in a pilot study with the New South Wales Government Architect for design excellence, and that meant we didn't have to go through a design competition. So from submission of the DA in September 18 to grant of consent in September 19, less than 12 months, and that included going to the panel as well. So that was pretty quick by Sydney standards. The programme of government requirements was that some of our leveraging target was met by this project, as well as some of our SAF round 1 commitments. And the financing structure, we swapped over financiers during the course of the year from Clean Energy Finance Corporation to NIFIC. And this was the first project that NIFIC had actually financed in construction. So that was a big deal for them, but that's the federal element, if you like, of funding. Low-cost funding from both CFC and NIFIC also helps the capital stack. And keeping it simple with single point financier is also helpful from that perspective. So moving on, hopefully this works. Done 2 slides too high. The project timeline, I mentioned a little bit earlier, this actually is a sort of snake that goes from the top left and then from right to left in the middle and then left to right at the end. So overall, just less than 4 years from when we first engaged with the City of Sydney in December 2017 to topping out and opening on 7th of June this year. And that was actually ahead of programme. Lend-Lease delivered about 3 or 4 weeks early. And in part, it's because we really had those design smarts in right up front to iron out all the buildability issues. There's no car parking on this building whatsoever, nothing for the commercial, nothing for the residential. So we came straight out of the ground with no need for basements, and that's also a big time saver as well as a big cost saver. But we did argue that through the design process that bikes would be the mode of transport we wanted to support from a healthy living and engaging with our customers. We also put in a proposal for the bike hub to be part of a community program as well, and that allowed us to virtually halve the number of bike spaces that we required under the planning controls, and that also helped in the space efficiency of the whole ground floor and back of house areas. We also worked very closely during that design development process with Joe Hurst from Bamali, the Aboriginal Arts Trust, and you'll see that we've incorporated public art and relevant artwork into the actual building fabric rather than just have it as a piece of sculpture or anything of that nature. And that's worked really well in telling the story of this part of Redfern. This is on level 3. This is a double-story height public open space, private open space for exclusive use by residents in the building. It's quite extensive. This is the soft play area for families and children. There's an enclosed area, also as well as barbecue areas and what have you. This is all at level 3 of the building. And you can see the lighting on the soffit there. That's part of Joe's original design concept that's forever viewable from people outside as well as inside the building, because this fronts onto Gibbon Street itself. On level 17, there's a further open space area, which is more of an adult open space with seating and a couple of barbecue areas there as well. So it's quite a constrained site. We had Gibbon Street, which is a pretty busy road in normal times, so loading access was quite constrained. And we've got Redfern Station opposite, so noise transmission and having to do isolation works in some of the structure was part of that early design consideration. In fact, the biggest noise isn't actually the trains; it's the platform announcements at 10 and 11 o'clock at night. So this building is fully double glazed. It's built to 8-star NATA's rating, and that's throughout. So we put a big store on energy efficiency in our buildings. 7 stars is our minimum and 8 stars is our stretch. This will achieve that by having full double glazing throughout, extra insulation. We also have a solar array on the roof, which feeds into a battery storage room, which has sufficient energy throughout 24/7 to power all the common area lighting and power sockets, as well as the lifts. So there are 2 lifts on this building. So we're effectively, building in some efficiencies for ourselves as a landlord, but also for our customers, because on average, with the level of insulation and trickle vents and ceiling fans, a 2-bed customer occupying one of our units will save about $500 a year on their electricity bills, and in a 1-bed it's close to $350. So it's really going to purpose in terms of assisting our customers. So these are all affordable and social housing. It's about 100 social and 60 affordable housing units, all salt and peppered. There's absolutely no distinction in terms of internal finishes or anything of that nature. And in fact, the Lend-Lease team who came around to see this during construction were amazed at just how big the units were, because no basement, no storage cages. So all the storage is within the apartments. Generally, we're at the higher end of the ADG requirements in terms of apartment size, and we've got a significant proportion of over 20% of the units as adaptable, all built to silver livable. So you do get a feeling of real good space in these apartments. And because it's a building that's got 4 elevations, natural light is excellent pretty much to all of the units. So you can see the timeline there in terms of the development process. From locking in with Lend-Lease in March, June 2019, we secured the development consent, I think it was the 10th September 2019, exchanged and settled on the land on the 20th, and awarded the contract to Lend-Lease on the 30th. And then it was really sort of buckle down and get on with a pretty quick program. Jump form construction for the core, and above the ground floor plinth, which is all in very beautiful brickwork. It's all precast concrete, self-finished. The central tower does have a Norcore treatment, but the whole idea is that once we've built these buildings, we don't take a paintbrush to the outside of them. And again, that's about ongoing maintenance efficiencies. You can see the interiors of some of the finished buildings, and there's the solar array. On the floor, no carpets. We put a interlocking timber look vinyl with acoustic backing. It's a very heavy duty material. It's got a serviceable life of over 35 years. And during that period, we'd have about 7 at least carpet changes. $4,000 a throw on each 2-bedder. That's a big saving throughout the building life. I'll just get through to the final slides now. So design excellence was really at the heart of this. It allowed us to move through the planning process pretty quickly, but it also allowed some really good innovation during that, because the interactive sessions with the Design Excellence panel really helped lift some of the private open spaces and the arrangements of those within the building. So rather than having everything up at the roof level, which is quite windy, bringing it down and being in closer contact with the Redfern community was a real lift for the building. You can see in the entrance area here more of Joe's artwork. We've expressed it also in some of the detailing on the brickwork around the ground floor. This is a terrazzo finish, again, picked for durability, but also we could get a great expression of the artwork in the area that most people are going to come into contact with on this project. All the customers come through the front entrance, as do visitors. And indeed, you can just see through the glass screen at the right-hand side there, that's the entrance to the SGCH office. So we had the, looking at the capital stack in terms of how the subsidised offers can work. Discounted land or land gifted by local authorities is obviously at the top of the pile there. Capital grants, participation in government programmes where there's a service payment like NRAS or SAF. We put in equity, we have to raise our own debt and try and keep that as efficient as possible. And then using the RCEP bonuses where they're available to maximise floor space and minimise car parking. And that's really us. That's as a sort of single project. What we're trying to do is create great places for everyone. So hopefully that's been a good run through, and happy to do I need to stop screen sharing now?
Yeah, Andrew, we'll get you to jump out of that. Thank you so much for that presentation. Again, really, really interesting. Some questions coming in, and I'll stick with you just for a moment, particularly in relation to the way that you went about designing this and the involvement of the community, whether it be by co-design or otherwise, in actually what that outcome is. Andrew, how did you go about designing and finally landing on what was there?
So we consulted obviously with our allocations team to understand what the preferred mix was likely to be. We take a lot of learnings from our previous schemes in terms of customer feedback, in terms of what works for them, in terms of features, facilities, materials. And we had quite a lot of community consultation before we entered into that design excellence piece to understand what the community expectations were, because it's in our business and in our DNA to be the neighbour of choice, rather than coming in with a stigma of, well, this is social housing and how does that fit with the. I think we just open ears, open eyes, and hear what the community has to say, what their expectations are, and really try and dovetail with that. We're there for a long term, and I think having the management presence on site and such a large building is helping us just to have that conversation on a continuous basis, rather than being absent landlord and hopefully everything sorts itself out. It doesn't. Key to these projects is, other than partnerships, is having that community engagement and being there to have the conversation, because it always develops. It doesn't have the one-stop fix that you start at concept stage or on a delivery stage. It's about the ongoing livability of these buildings and how they present and how they're maintained, so that they play a good part in the local fabric.